Wolf.
Laura, thank you. I want to bring in our experts and our analysts to discuss this truly historic day. Jim Acosta, as all of our viewers know, you've been face-to-face with Trump on many occasions in recent years, in gaggles, in press briefings. What did you make of his demeanor today?
Well, I was used to Donald Trump being in the White House, and he's gone from being commander-in-chief to being a criminal defendant. He was back at the scene of the crime today, or almost the scene of the crime, just down the street from the scene of the crime. And I guess it's no surprise to hear what he was saying out on the tarmac over at Reagan National Airport, that this is a persecution. He's going to parlay this message right into the campaign. But just to play off of what Laura and Tom were talking about a few moments ago, I think we should be looking for Donald Trump to pursue a strategy that can be summed up as the 2 Ds. Delay in the courthouse and disparage and demonize out on the campaign trail. I think that's exactly what he's going to do. But, I talked to a longtime Trump advisor in recent days who said it's going to be incredibly difficult for Donald Trump to win a general election, no matter how they campaign over the next 12 months. And so, what remains to be seen at this point is, as Tom and Laura were discussing, can Donald Trump play by the rules? Obviously, we've seen up until this point, he's certainly not going to do that. He has demonstrated time and again that he has no interest in doing that, and I think that's what we should expect to see moving forward.
Kristen Soltis-Anderson, what do you think?
I think today he sounded very defiant and touched on a message that he's hit on for years, which is this kind of sacrificial martyr type narrative, that he is somebody who has sacrificed, whether it was during his presidency, he would talk about how he sacrificed his business career for the people who were his supporters. Now he's saying, I'm taking these slings and arrows from the courts for you. And this is part of why there are such a large number of Republicans who remain very devoted to him personally, that he's built a movement not just around particular policy ideas, you want to cut spending, limited government, any of that. He's made it about himself, and this just feeds that narrative further.
Gene, I want you to listen for a second there to see how some of Trump's lawyers are already trying to maybe spin this entire moment. Listen to this.
Okay.
I think that everybody was made aware that he lost the election, but that doesn't mean that that was the only advice he was given. As anybody understands what happens in the Oval Office, there are a numerous amount of advisors and politicians and lawyers, not just one or two, that are giving you advice and telling you what they believe is true. So he may not agree with Mike Pence. He may not agree with one of his lawyers, but that doesn't mean that there weren't other people advising him exactly the opposite. And the president has a right, as every one of us do, to listen to several opinions and make their decision.
What do you make of that, Gene?
I think it's baloney, and here's why. When the Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr, tells him there's no fraud, I think you take that to the bank. When Pat Sipple, the White House counsel, says that, you take it to the bank. There is probably only one person who thought the election had been stolen in the White House. That was Donald Trump. So according to this indictment, there's not one person who truthfully said to him that he won. And the other thing is, he made admissions that he had lost. He said to aides, how can you believe I lost to this guy? And he asked Mike Pence on New Year's Day to reject the certification. And he basically said, you're too honest. That's a person who has a guilty mind and knows that he lost the election.
By the way, Pence is now marketing on that as part of his, memorabilia, paraphernalia, campaign stuff he's doing. But you know how the right hand and left hand are not always on the same body when it comes to trying to have a united front? You heard from the lawyer. I want you all to now listen to what Trump's daughter-in-law said just moments ago.
Let me just clear it up for anybody that has any questions out there. Donald Trump believed on November 3rd of 2020 he won that election. He has believed every day since that he won that election. He still continues to believe that. So anyone trying to say otherwise maybe wants to take note of that.
You mean like the attorney or someone else on that very point?
Well, here's what I want to say. If you go through this indictment and look at those lists of witnesses, I was a former prosecutor for a long time. I am salivating because every one of those witnesses, including Mark Meadows and all the campaign people, including Stephen Miller, they knew he lost the election. I want to go back to 1960. John F. Kennedy got 306 electoral votes. He beat Richard Nixon by 118,000 votes. Did Nixon do this January 6th thing? No, he was a statesman at that time, and he said, you won. Donald Trump lost by 7.1 million votes. And he knew that he had no chance of winning other than causing havoc on January 6th.
Well, if he's salivating, I saw you champing at the bench, Jim Acosta.
I was just going to say, because people might not remember all of this all that clearly, but I do. I was there covering the White House in the days after the 2020 election and talking to aides and advisors who said Donald Trump knew that he lost the election. And what he was doing from that point forward was trying to orchestrate an administrative or procedural coup. And what led up to January 6th and ended up being almost a coup unfolding before our eyes. I mean, I talked to White House advisors who said, yes, he understands he lost. He will sometimes grumble, I can't believe I lost to this guy, and that sort of thing. And we reported a lot of this at that time. You go back and find it online. And so, yes, I mean, I think going to Gene's point, there's absolutely a state of mind. And one of the things that we're going to be looking to in this upcoming trial of the 21st century, if you want to call it that, is whether or not his former vice president, Mike Pence, takes the stand and testifies, which I think will be a huge moment. And he says, yes, Donald Trump did tell me you're being too honest. That suggests, going to Gene's point, that Donald Trump was fully prepared to be dishonest and trying to overturn that election.
Can I just make one point?
Yeah.
Motive in any criminal case is not an element, as you know, Laura, but it's relevant. Mike Pence had motive to say the election was stolen because he would remain as vice president. And I got to compliment Mike Pence. Even though he had the motive to say there was a fraud, he said there wasn't. And I couldn't do this constitutionally and reject the will of the people. So I got to compliment Mike Pence on this.
Yeah.
Let me bring Jamil into this conversation. Jamil, as you probably anticipate all of us do, the Trump lawyers will ask for a change of venue. They don't think necessarily they can get a fair trial here in Washington, D.C. How do you think the judge is going to react to this motion?
Well, look, I think that Donald Trump can get a fair trial in D.C. He's got a judge who's seen a number of January 6 defendants, who's got a reputation for being a fair and even-handed judge. And look, wherever you go in the country, this is a fraught matter. Everyone's watching it here on CNN, on every channel. If the president can't get a fair trial here, he can't get a fair trial anywhere. This is the locus of the events that took place that day. It was here that he called for the insurrection from the ellipse. It was here that insurrection took place. This is the place to try the case.
You agree, Gene?
In February and March of this year, I had a 6-week Oath Keeper trial. I represented a minnow. Great kid, 21 years old. He swallowed the Kool-Aid. I lost, fought like heck. It was very hard to pick a jury. Took us almost a week. And the reason is 95% of the voters in D.C. voted against Donald Trump. Can you get a fair trial here? Yes, but it's going to be difficult. Jury selection in this case is going to take 2 to 3 weeks. And the questions and the answers are going to be really hard to deal with. But I experienced it for 6 weeks. It can be done. My client's going to appeal, but he could get a fair trial.
Yeah, I suspect you're right. All right, guys, everybody stand by. We have a lot to discuss up next.